In a letter to Congress today, President Obama spelled out his right to defend Libya. The use of force is within his power as commander-in-chief. Of course, Senator Obama once argued the president should always get congressional approval to use force unless the country is under immediate threat. Texas Representative Ron Paul agrees with the position that the president took when the president was in the Senate. And tonight, Mr. Paul joins us to say the president is acting unconstitutionally. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, let me separate out two different issues, if I could. One, you don't think we should be in Libya at all. You just think it's bad policy, and as you said in an article that was published, it's simply none of our business. So let's start there. Explain why you don't think what's going on in Libya, or for that matter, the rest of North Africa, is any of our business.
Well, because I don't think they're up front with this. It is said that we're going there for humanitarian reasons, but have you ever noticed around the world there are a lot of humanitarian problems? One gross abuse of rights was in Rwanda. We didn't care too much about that. There's abuse of demonstrators all through the Middle East right now, but it's being done by governments that we endorse. There are friendly dictators. So I think they're being very disingenuous when they say this is a mission for humanitarianism. It's probably more related to oil than anything else.
Well, let's parse this a little bit, Congressman. I think you are absolutely correct. There are contradictions inherent in any foreign policy, and certainly President Clinton, who was in office as president when the events of the genocide in Rwanda occurred, has said his deepest regret is that as president he did not send our troops in there to stop that genocide. So let me ask you this. Would you have supported intervention in Rwanda to stop what was clearly genocide that led to the loss, unimaginable loss of life? Would you have supported that?
No, I don't think it's part of our Constitution that we should go about the world trying to solve every problem. And I think that it's very difficult to help the people who really need it. Even in Libya today, the chances of really helping the people, it's unknown. But too often when you take money or even food and give it to these factions when they're fighting at war, they become weapons of war. The one faction will get it and use it against the other one, and very rarely does it help the people. So I don't think it's constitutional. I don't think it accomplishes what it's supposed to, and that the founders were, I think, rather shrewd in giving us advice. Stay out of the entangling alliances, stay out of the internal affairs of other nations. But there's every reason to help people, and we are a generous nation. When people really suffer, whether it's an earthquake or any type of tragedy, the American people are quite willing to help. But when politicians get involved, it becomes political, and it doesn't achieve it. There's always unintended consequences, and things happen that weren't intended, and I just think we have gotten into wars so often since World War II carelessly, and here we are, we're engaged in 2 wars now, we can't get out of either one, and we're just falling into another one, and the authorities coming from the United Nations and Congress is irrelevant.
Congressman,
they don't seem to.
We'll get to the legal authority in just a moment, but I want to understand the parameters. Some people say, and some applaud and some criticize you for this, that you're an isolationist, that you really don't want any involvement in foreign affairs, no military alliances. And give me an example where you would have supported our intervention because of genocide, because of some humanitarian crisis, where we would send our military to get rid of a foreign government that was perpetrating acts so heinous that it simply violated our sense of humanity and decency. Is there any one example?
Well, not militarily, no, always only voluntarily. But the use of the word isolationist is a misuse of the word, a misunderstanding of that definition. I'm a non-interventionist, but I'm a free trader. I want people to go and come and trade with people, okay, and engage with people. An isolationist is usually a protectionist. They have high tariffs.
Congressman,
see, I'm for working and trading with Cuba, and that's not isolationism.
All right, fair point and a fair distinction. I want to pivot now for a moment. You have made a strong argument that the president lacks the constitutional power to do what we're doing. Explain why, and explain why. It's been since 1942 that since we've had a declaration of war from the United States Congress. Right. And so it's been decades and decades. Doesn't mean you're wrong, of course. But so why doesn't the president have power as commander-in-chief to send the military when he says this is threatening our national security, which is exactly what he said in the letter to Congress today?
Well, I guess it's because I listened to his speeches when he was a senator, because he was talking the right way. Now he has the powers to come away from the House and from the Senate and from the Congress. But the argument is that he's getting authority from the UN, and treaties allow that's an international law. It becomes the law of the land. But there are limitations. You cannot amend the Constitution by treaty. What if the UN decided that we shouldn't have a First Amendment? Would you say, oh, this is okay because the authority comes from the United Nations? That would be preposterous. So you can't rule out
Let me interrupt for 1 second, because I clearly agree with you about that. Of course, the UN can't amend our Constitution, but you also can't amend the Constitution through the statute you rely on, the War Powers Act, which tried to very carefully and tightly cabin the president's power, and that's why no president has ever really embraced it. The president would argue that inherent in his executive power as commander-in-chief is the authority over the military to intervene where national security is at risk, which is what he says in the letter today. Is he wrong about that?
I also agree with all the presidents who consider that the War Powers Resolution is unconstitutional. I believe that. That is amending the Constitution as well. And it actually legalizes war for 90 days, like was mentioned just earlier in this program. He doesn't have to sweat it with the Congress, because Congress has legalized war for 60 days. Then he has 30 days more. And by that time, there's a lot of killing going on, and nobody gets it, nobody stops the war. So they slip into war. Congress reneges on their responsibility. The president's usurp this power, and they use it when they're in the executive branch. They like this. But no, the War Powers Resolution is not constitutional, but the presidents don't like it because they're afraid their power may be curtailed. I don't like it because it has given the president too much power, and it actually legalizes war for 90 days.
Congressman, we got to run, but I want you to come back on the show because I want to have a conversation with you about what you're going to do. Are you going to go to court? How are you going to enforce your view and actually get a remedy for your perspective on this? Anyway, Congressman, always great to have you on your show. Appreciate your joining us tonight.